Okay, so what I want to show you now are um, two presentations by students that were really good. There are a few problems with each of them, which is why I'm going to show you two. The first one, this one that you're looking at right now, um, the question at the end is really well done. There is a great. Well, first of all, it's a good question. It's a good falsifiable question. Christopher comes up with a way to um, test it. You know, it doesn't have to be quite as methodical as he's got for yours, though if it is, that's fantastic. This is a study that he could do if he had, again, unlimited time and money. If I were able to give those to each student to do some sort of research, this is set up in a way that it actually could be done and possibly tell us something new and informative about Wernicke's aphasia. Now, you'll notice that there are some issues with the presentation, though, if you've watched what I've put together. Namely, that is, his slides are missing quite a few references. He's got references at the end, which is great, but he needs those citations in the beginning. So anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at this, and you can get a feel for what he's done here. It's pretty good, aside from missing those references. I would like a little bit more information in the bullet points, along with the parenthetical documentation and the references. But overall, decent. I would say. I think he got a low A on this. But the question is fantastic.
Hey everyone, I will be talking about Wernicke's aphasia. Quick and brief discussion on what it is, the causes, and treatment. Also, my big question at the end. Wernicke's aphasia is a type of aphasia. More specifically, is a fluent aphasia, which means that the production of speaking is fine. They can speak all day if they wanted, but the problem comes in when comprehension and imitation get involved, where we can't understand or comprehend what they're saying, and they can't comprehend what we are saying. And also, what comes along with that is they can't imitate anything we tell them to imitate. So there's problems with the processing of the language. It's something in that part of the brain where they have a very big difficulty processing the language. Wernicke's aphasia is a cognitive issue that is rooted in the Wernicke's area, which you can see right there. It is caused by pretty much anything. If you damage your brain and the damage gets right there, I mean, you can get it, or you can get a different type of aphasia if you go around there to the Broca's area, or if you just do a doozy on yourself, you can get global aphasia if you just damage a whole ton of stuff. But some common causes are TBI, traumatic brain injury, or if you get a stroke and the blood flow stops and for like 15 seconds and oxygenated blood is not flowing through, it could damage it enough to where you can get Wernicke's aphasia if the blood flow is not going to this part of the brain. Okay, so how is it treated? What is the goal, pretty much? And if you have someone come in to your office or clinic or whatever, and they have Wernicke's aphasia, after you take a speech samples or you realize that it is, what are you supposed to do? So when you have a patient with Wernicke's aphasia, and you go through certain speech therapies, language therapies, you want to just pretty much increase their quality of life in any way you can. Even if it's just one word, and that word of some significance, as in their spouse's name, their favorite keyword to doing, hobbies, or their favorite food, whatever it may be. Even just one word can increase their quality of life, and in their shoes, it could increase their quality of life substantially. So it's worth it. And also, it's important to know that you can't treat it 100%. Someone with Wernicke's aphasia is very, very, very unlikely, if not impossible, to go back to their abilities before the incident happened that gave them developmental disorders. Also, Pickle Rick. He doesn't like therapy. Don't be like Pickle. So my big question is it bothersome that we don't understand them? Do they get irritated that they can't get their point across, even though they're trying to? They just can't pick the right words. There's something going wrong with the processing and picking the right words in their lexicon, to where they don't know how to relate words with meaning, or they don't know how to select the appropriate words, which means just we can't understand them. So does this frustrate them, or are they getting angry on the inside? Yeah. So that's pretty much my question. So after I did some research and read a scholarly article titled "Devising a Method to Study If Wernicke Aphasia Patients Are Aware That They Do Not Comprehend Language or Speak It Understandably," they made a case study conducted a case study, and they saw that the patients with Wernicke aphasia were able to communicate at a much higher rate, effectively, with pictures rather than written or oral communication. And the one example is that one with the bone, is they would show patients the bone and they would associate with a dog most of the time. And then they would turn around and put the words down and instead of the pictures. And a lot of them would not go for the dog right away, and then they would point to the question mark, saying, I don't know. And what they would then do is show them a slide kind of like this, and I completely, wrote over the frowny face, but it's a happy face and a frowny face, and then they would, have them point to that sign, while they didn't get it, and say, well, how does that make you feel? Does that make you feel happy? Does that make you feel sad? And kind of going, through it, multiple times to, get the, a good concrete, as concrete as you could possibly get, study, and just keep on asking the questions and seeing how repetitive the results were. And that would be my, research idea, is to conduct, this and, see if that, if they're able to answer, I'm sad, or I'm happy about it, or I really don't care, I got it wrong, whoop-de-doo, So I would like to see, if they first understand it with pictures, and then they get an example of words, and they're like, well, now I don't understand a single thing. And if you quickly throw in the happy, sad face, I feel like there's a way that, the patients with Wernicke aphasia, that they might be able to say, well, right now I'm not feeling too happy. And if it's constantly through, getting things wrong, then I think this would answer the question whether or not that they are happy or sad that they can't understand the language, and that we can't understand them.
Okay, so there's that. We're ending on the references here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's 2 missing here. This is from a previous semester. So, well, actually, this is from 2 years ago, possibly 3. So I don't think I was requiring 7 on this one. So he didn't lose any points there. The question is great. The question is great. There's a really easily, not easily answerable question, but a question that can have a yes or no answer. Um, some thought given to how to test it. It's pretty much ready to go. That was great. I mean, full marks on the question there, if not an extra point for how much thought was given. Now, like I said, the beginning was a little lackluster in terms of citations that we had for, um, what looking at the history of Wernicke's aphasia, and it didn't really transition well into emotional states with Wernicke's aphasia. I would have liked to see that a little bit more. Maybe after watching it a third time, it might be B level everything else, but the question is one of the best I've seen. Um, let's see. Let's take a quick look at these references. This is good. This is good. This is a good reference. These are all great references. Presumably, he would have a sixth one that would be my slides, and he should be using last names for these three that he's not. But the actual references that he's using are the right kind of journal article that I want to see. Okay, so now I'm going to show you something that's kind of the opposite. It is one of the best presentations of the material that I've seen. The question is a little lackluster. It's there, but it's not nearly as well defined. And so what I want you to do while you're watching these is think with your topic, with what you've done, how could you put the two of these together? The excellent dive into the history and current issues of galactosemia, galactosemia, intolerance, and Wernicke's aphasia, emotional states in Wernicke's aphasia that we just saw here. The video is loading, and it's taking a while. I'm just going to cut right here, and you'll probably see that video show up. Okay, here's that video. Anyway, this one, the presentation is fantastic. There are citations, really well done, lots of information. And then when we get to the question, it could be a little bit better. But anyway, while you're watching, think about how you could meld the two for your topic. Okay, I'll get out of here and let you watch this.
Hello, my name is Emily Landis, and today I will be speaking on classic galactosemia and its impact on speech. So what is classic galactosemia? Classic galactosemia is a very rare hereditary disorder that impacts one's ability to digest galactose. This is due to a decreased GALT enzyme activity, and that results in toxic accumulation of galactose 1-phosphate. How do we identify this? Early identification is key with kids with classic galactosemia. It is imperative for their development and their health. Luckily, in the U.S., we screen for it at the newborn screenings, but in many countries in Europe, they do not. So they look for poor feeding and weight gain, vomiting and diarrhea, jaundice, cataracts, encephalopathy, lethargy, bleeding and excessive bruising, basically a failure to thrive, among a plethora of other things. The treatment for this disorder, unfortunately, is limited to galactose restriction, basically avoiding all galactose. What contains galactose? Good question. Mammalian milk, all male milk. So products made from mammalian milk or containing mammalian milk is a big no-go for people with classic galactosemia. This includes human breast milk, which is why early identification is so important and why it is so great the U.S. screens for it right after the newborn screening, because obviously newborns are only consuming breast milk and or infant formula, regular infant formula, which also contains galactose. And this high consumption of galactose at birth or around right after birth, really leads to the toxic accumulation we were speaking about, which leads to our complications, which, this is potentially life-threatening. These kids that are consuming this much galactose and they don't know that they have this disorder, it can be so detrimental to their development. It can even cause them to die. So complications, it is potentially life-threatening. It can lead to multiple organ failure, especially the liver. The liver is very targeted by this. Like we said earlier, jaundice is an identification factor. It is something to look for, and the liver is one of the organs that tends to fail. So long-term complications, even after discontinuing all consumption of galactose, a child is, or a person, adults as well, are not guaranteed no further complications. In fact, many still report having cognition, speech, language disorders, and even ovarian failure later on in life. Let's take a deeper look at these complications, especially dealing with the speech and language complications. So according to Delnoy and their associates, 85% of patients reported having developmental and neurological delays or complications, speech and language disorders, or behavioral problems. This is a huge chunk of the population, and it's 85% is just absolutely insane. And this is after they stop all galactose consumption. According to Peter, 77% of classic lactosemia patients have speech disorders and 71% have language impairments. Looking further at these speech and language disorders, the two most common for classic lactosemia patients, according to Potter, is apraxia of speech and dysarthria. So apraxia of speech is a motor speech disorder that is neurological in nature. It presents as inconsistent vowel and consonant errors and difficulty with articulation and improper use of prosody as well. It often co-occurs with other motor speech disorders like dysarthria. So dysarthria, like I just said, is another motor speech disorder, and it is a muscle weakness or paralysis, a result of muscle weakness or paralysis. It presents as consistent vowel and consonant errors and improper use of prosody. It also presents as decreased range of motion, speed, or coordination issues. So basically, the child is unable to articulate due to muscle issues for dysarthria, and in apraxia, they are unable to articulate due to a neurological disorder. My lingering question is, what else can we do to protect these patients to prevent the further complications? I know simply restricting galactosemia, I just feel like that is not enough. I feel like we should be doing more. But what can we do? So this is something that the Babel Bootcamp at ASU is actually looking at. They're looking at how early intervention impacts the outcome for patients with classic galactosemia and typicals as well. And hopefully preemies soon. But that being said, therapy does not normally start until there are signs or symptoms of a disorder or delay. And that's not until, ages 2 to 4, according to Dr. Peter. And that 2 to 4 is very late. It is so late in development. There's such a critical, window in there that, we're missing. These kids waiting to see the disorder when we already know that there is such a predisposition for speech and language issues is just insane. Why wait when you can start the therapy earlier? I also wonder if there is anything else besides early intervention therapy that could work. So, people that are unable to have lactose, it is very similar. It's similar in a very rudimentary way. People that are lactose intolerant are unable to digest lactose, and people with galactosemia are unable to digest galactose. Very similar. Obviously, one is way more severe than the other, but I wonder if there could be some kind of medication developed like lactate is for people with lactose intolerance for people with galactose, some kind of thing to take before consuming the galactose to help. Of my knowledge, I do not know anything in the works about that, but I think that would be something interesting to look into. Thank you so much for sticking around. Here are my references, and I hope you enjoyed learning about classic galactosemia. It is something I find very fascinating, and thank you.
Okay, so is that going to let me go?
Hello, my name is Intolerance for people with. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed learning about classic.
Okay, so she's got the right number of references. This is the same one that you saw as a paper earlier, the sample paper. So she's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Excellent. Well done there. I mean, I'm sure that you could see that was a really good walkthrough of what galactosemia is, some of the current research, some of the previous research, some of the really current research being done right here at ASU. And then she did have a question, 2 questions actually. What can we do for that period between 2 and 4? And then also, is there something sort of like a medication that you could take to block galactose from being metabolized into the system? They're good questions. They're good. They're good ways of thinking to try to come up with a good answer to those, because they could be really important. However, we're not exactly falsifiable just because they're not targeted enough, right? So, I mean, you can say, like, is there something like lactate that can be used? That does have a yes or no question. You can answer that yes or no, assuming that you had the knowledge, if there was that thing. But we don't have that knowledge. And it's one of those things where, unlike the previous one, I could put in unlimited time and money. We might not be able to find an answer to that. We might not be able to uncover a yes or no answer there. Now, let's say that she did a little bit of research into anything that's being currently developed, or maybe she found an enzyme or something that might block galactose. I mean, that's super in-depth. That's more in-depth than you necessarily need to go. But I'm just saying, the yes or no question that could be answered with time and money, now is, oh, well, does this enzyme, if we gave people this enzyme, would it prevent galactosemia? So that's more like the yes or no type question, more like that first one. So try to make your walkthrough of the literature up to the question look just like Emily's. Make your question kind of like Christopher's. I think if you put the 2 of those together, you're really well off. I mean, that's great work if you can put the 2 of those together. That's an A, first of all. And then it's also a really good setup to the kind of things you're going to be doing in graduate school, no matter what area you're in, right? So if you want to be an SLP, you'd be writing papers like this during your master's education. If you want to be an audiologist, you're going to be writing papers like this for your master's education. If you want to be, if you want to get a PhD, this is all we do. I mean, we research stuff, we present it at conferences as a presentation, and then we write papers on it, and then we teach classes, and we use our research and other people's research to teach about those topics. So if you take the time to put into this and do really well, this is definitely a skill that will help you succeed. So, okay, hopefully this was helpful to making your own, and I look forward to seeing them. So good luck.